Hey friend, welcome back to Organize with Grace. I am so glad you're here with me. And this past week has been a big transition for me personally. As I've wrapped up my time with my full-time job with EDD, Employment Development Department, and stepping into this next chapter, full-time with content creation. I'm still going to be looking for a job in the background, but, just really open to what is to come. And that got me thinking about another huge transition that I continue to talk about and what this whole podcast is all about, in addition to decluttering, that so many of us face at one point, is downsizing. Now, I use that word a lot. We hear that word a lot in this podcast, but then it made me wonder, have we always needed to downsize? Like, what's the point of downsizing? And whose idea was it that we should? And what does it really mean for us today? All right, so I want to invite you on this little journey together, okay? And for you history buffs, I think this will be fun. If you're not a history kind of person, I hope that it'll be valuable to you too, and in helping to understand what downsizing truly is and how it's come about and where it's going. If we look back a few generations, downsizing really wasn't a thing. Families lived in the same homes for decades. The land, the tools, the furniture, the homes, they were passed down. And there wasn't this pressure to reduce or sort through everything because homes were multi-generational and the stuff stayed in the family. So between 1750 and 1850, during that time, societies were primarily agricultural. They didn't have a whole lot of production capabilities as far as mass production, and they're often organized around small villages and communities. Now, here comes the Industrial Revolution. So that was a period of very significant change. And personally speaking, I feel like revolution is like an understatement because it changed everything. So this was during the late 1800s to the early 19th century, and it was a transition from that hand production methods to machines. And that led to the rise of factories and mass productions. And that began in Great Britain, and then it spread pretty much all across the world. And it really changed the economy, the economies and societies by increasing productivity and changing labor conditions. And don't even get me started on that, because I personally believe that that really changed everything. Yes, we thought for the good, but I think it really produced a lot of bad. But I'm going to set my opinions aside for now, and we will continue and walking through history, okay? Now, post-World War II. All right, so now we're moving on to the 1950s and 60s. Suburbs were up and coming, bigger homes, consumerism, and stuff became identity. And still, downsizing wasn't really common. It was also at this time that we had the rise of modern conveniences. So think washers and dryers, dishwashers, microwave ovens, refrigerators with freezers, and then Tupperware parties. So there were these items popping up, and I believe that what it has become is that the more stuff you have, you are viewed as someone who is successful and that you've made it in life somehow because you have these modern conveniences. You've got people that have color televisions and even cars. You were the bomb. You were awesome if you had a car. And then there's also, fortunately, I don't know, mostly unfortunately, credit cards in the 1950s. Like the first ones were called like Diners Club. And that really began how Americans paid for travel, dining, and shopping. So do you see where we're going here? And so you baby boomers, this was your time. Where are my boomers at? Raise your hand. If you're listening to this podcast, you are my people and I love you. So before I move on, I want to talk about that term, the actual term downsizing, and where did it actually come from and how its meaning evolved over time. So back in around 1975, downsizing first popped up to describe businesses shrinking their operations. And what does that mean? They were cutting back, they were laying off people due to the market changing, and it's usually to save money. I mean, that's the bottom line, really. And so, again, we're talking about layoffs, eliminating positions, all the tough decisions companies make, and to the detriment of the individuals that had these positions and their families. It really applied to the corporate world. And then it started moving into other areas of our lives, including our homes. And we began to hear people saying, I'm downsizing my house, meaning they're moving into a smaller place. And then this often happens due to financial reasons, or maybe just they want a simpler lifestyle. And then also cars. I know this goes back and forth through time, but now we've got all kinds of cars. But through time, cars did get smaller, and that is downsizing in action. Like automakers started like making smaller vehicles, and they wanted fuel efficiency, and that's what people wanted. So while downsizing now covers everything from our homes to our cars, its roots are definitely in the business sector, all about making things smaller and cutting costs. Isn't that fascinating? Like how that single word can expand and mean so much. No wonder that it's a scary term for many of us. And then into the 1980s and 2000s, that's when retirement communities started popping up. And of course, as always, economic shifts. And then also the rise of minimalism. And so downsizing became a concept. And today, we are living longer and housing costs keep rising. And then we've got caregiving responsibilities. So with all of these things, downsizing becomes necessary and normal. Now, in my personal experience, I think back 25 years ago when I was still in school. Yes, I was in college 25 years ago, where I minored in gerontology, and many people didn't even know what that term means. And I can get into that later on, but in a nutshell, it's the study of aging. And the projected statistics of our population living longer, the U.S. population aged 65 and over grew nearly 5 times faster than the total population over the 100 years from 1920 to 2020, according to the 2020 census. Now, the older population reached 55.8 million, or 16.8 of the population in the United States in 2020. Now, again, as someone who studied this over a couple of decades ago, these were only mere projections. And for me to see this come to fruition and to be a part of this industry that serves people as they age, I mean, it's amazing to me. And I feel like there's so much more need to serve this population, and specifically in the area of downsizing. Those large homes back in the 50s, they are now too overwhelming for people. And I would hear from people that are nearing their retirement age, like they're like, I don't even want to go up the stairs because my knees hurt, right? Health and mobility realities. And then I'm going to mention it again, is the economic reality. And selling or moving into smaller spaces is just what makes sense at this time. And there are also emotional and spiritual reasons. You know, they want more peace. You want more peace. You want more freedom. You want more clarity. And those are all very valid reasons to downsize. So there you go. I hope that you are still with me, because here is the challenge, and this is where you come in. When people think about downsizing, oftentimes, and this might be your feelings as well, is that they often freeze. They get stuck. The piles, the decisions, the emotions. It's all too much, and understandably so, right? There is too many decisions to make and a house full of stuff. You may be dealing with 1,500 square feet or 3,000 square feet. Whatever the square footage is, there are so many decisions to make. And freeze, as we've discussed in an earlier episode, when it comes to our nervous system, is what happens when clutter and decisions paralyze you. And I want to introduce something I call the grace pause. A grace pause is something different. It's active, it's intentional, it's where you stop on purpose. You take a breath and you give yourself kindness before choosing your next small step. And it's the difference between the overwhelm that's owning you right now and you taking back control. Maybe that small step is touching just one item and deciding, do I keep this? Do I donate it? Or do I release it? And maybe it's writing something on a future release list, perhaps. And maybe it's just taking one deep breath and opening the next box. And that is the grace pause. See, the thing that I don't want you to do is to remain in that overwhelmed state, to stay in that stuck state. And downsizing, it can do that to us. And I don't want that to happen to you. And if this episode spoke to you, I've created a reflection worksheet to begin your downsizing process. Even if you are not planning to move anytime soon, you can begin to think about these things. And with the reflection worksheet, normally I would want to have your email, in order for you to get this worksheet, but I want to make sure that it's accessible to you. And would you do me a favor that if you did go through this worksheet, would you let me know? Would you email me at grace@organizewithgrace.com? Let me know if you found it helpful. Now, these questions, it will help clarify what it's all about for you. What does downsizing mean to you? It can be as detailed as you want. Now, you don't necessarily have to download this worksheet. You can pull up a piece of paper. If you're someone who likes to journal, like myself, you can begin this as a journaling type of process. And the first question I want to have you ask yourself is, when I look around my home, what's the first feeling that comes up for me? And don't edit yourself. Just write it down. Whatever comes up when you look around your home and when you're thinking about this whole downsizing process. And then number 2, what do I want this next season of life to feel like in my home? Again, what do I want this next season of life to feel like in my home? And then number 3, what's the one thing that I already know I no longer need to hold on to? You can usually look around your home and determine that one thing. And I give you full permission to get rid of that thing. And then number 4, what am I most afraid of when I think about downsizing? And finally, number 5, if I let go of one thing, what kind of freedom might open up for me? And you don't have to necessarily answer all of these questions, but these are great questions to begin. And if you have a downsizing story, I would love to hear it. Leave me an email. I love reading emails, and I do read them all. And so I would love to hear from you. Again, my email is grace@organizewithgrace.com. I believe that this is just the start of a bigger conversation. Downsizing has its history, but it doesn't necessarily have to feel like punishment, like we're losing things. And if you'd like more personal guidance on this, I work one-on-one with women just like you, men too, if you're ready to move past the overwhelm. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Just know that you're not alone in this journey. And every stone moved is a victory, no matter how small.